So I am going to talk about the available funding that we have. My rural number is not there. So the available funding for rural is actually almost $60 million. I apologize that it's not there. I will update this slide before the presentation is sent. But it's about $60 million. And that actually only has partial federal fiscal year 2022 apportionments in it. We do have quite a bit of formula funding that has been built up due to the CARES funding that we were awarded in 2020. We've been really drawing down that funding over the past 2 years, which has, made us accumulate federal funding. So even though there's nearly $60 million in federal funding available, it does not mean that we will be awarding all of that for 2023. We still have considerations that we make for, funding selection or project selection rather, and, we will only be allocating enough funding to cover the projects that we feel are, a good investment for federal funds in 2023. So, that's just kind of a little disclaimer there that even if you see a large number, it does not mean that that's what we will be awarding in 2023. On the urban side, we have $33 million in flex funds available. And then on the state side, we have a little over $12 million in state funding for rural and a little over $3 million in state funding for urban. On the rural side, there's another little disclaimer, about $6 million of that is through the OTP2 program. And while you are not applying for programs anymore, we do have that set aside with the condition that if we don't have enough good projects for OTP2, it will be reallocated to urban. So in the past, we have had those situations where the rural set aside funding in that OTP2 program does end up going towards urban projects just for lack of need in the rural areas. So, that's also a little disclaimer on that rural side. We do tend to see some fluctuating in those numbers once we actually do awards. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and move into accessing the application. So in the past, you would get a link if you had a FormStack application, or you would be granted access in Black Hat. But since it's all in FormStack now, everyone will get an email with the application link in it. And then we will also be posting the link on our funding page on our website. So this presentation will be a PDF, so that link will be clickable once you get this presentation emailed to you. And the big thing here is that the application actually will have a password. Since there is 2 levels of eligibility that must be met in order to apply, and this will be posted on a public site, we wanted that level of security with the application so that only people who are granted access can actually submit the application. So once we email you the link, we will also give you the password that you will need. And so I've included a screenshot here. This is what you'll see once you click that link. This is the box that you will see. You just enter that password as it's represented in the email in that box. And as soon as you click continue, the form will open up. So a few things to remember before you start. So again, one application will be submitted for each applicant. And in this application, you will include all of your projects being requested for program year 2023. However, there is one exception to this, and this is going to be a very rare occurrence, but I definitely want to take the time to explain this because it is very important. If you are someone who have projects that will take place in a rural area and an urban area, that would be the only exception to this. You would need to submit an application for your rural projects and an application for your urban projects. So for example, TARDA, I'm going to call out Toledo. TARDA is applying for funds to maintain service in Toledo. However, they're also seeking funds to provide rural service in Lucas County. TARDA would need to submit an application for their Toledo projects and a separate application for their Lucas County projects. And the reason for this is ODOT, while you guys no longer have the burden of trying to, decide which funding you should go for based on what projects you want to implement. On our end, we still need to be able to match these project requests with our funding. And because we have very specific funding pots in terms of what's eligible for rural and what's eligible for urban, it is so much cleaner for us to be able to look at an application and clearly see where the requests are for rural and where the requests are for urban. So if we're mixing those in one application, it gets really, really convoluted really, really fast. So I don't think that there will be many people who are facing those scenarios. But since, again, we're no longer saying you must apply for this program, that does mean that urban transit providers who receive Section 5307 funding, we are opening it up to you if you have rural areas that you previously have not been able to serve under your Section 5307 allocation. You can apply through ODOT funding to service those areas. It has been kind of a rule in the past, for whatever reason, that we kept 5307 and 5311 very separate. That is not the case anymore. We are open to considering those needs of rural areas in previously considered urban counties. So that might be news to you. This might be the first time you're hearing that. And if that is something that you want to take advantage of and you're unsure if you're eligible because of the LOI process, maybe you didn't outline that in your LOI, please reach out and we can look at your scenario and see with your LOI if you can proceed with those projects. But at any rate, you can also start thinking about that and preparing for future application cycles. Because if you are doing new service, we do want to see a lot of planning efforts and coordination and making sure that this is necessary and how you're coming to that determination. So you might need some time to really work that out anyway. But I do kind of want to make sure people are aware that that is eligible. So when in doubt, just reach out and ask. If you're not sure, okay, should this be a separate application? Can I do this all in one? We are happy to answer those scenarios for you and work through those with you to make sure that, you are making decisions based on fact and not assumption. It works out for you better in the end and works out better for us in the end. So some form stack things to consider. Um, applicants cannot save attachments. So the attachments, we've run into this issue in the past where, we have the save and resume feature because it is a large application. You're probably going to have to revisit it several times. And we've had people put attachments as they go along just to find out the next time that they log into their application, they're gone. So we quickly found out attachments cannot be saved. So to kind of mitigate that limitation of FormStack, we have an attachment section that is located at the very end of the application. So that way you can go through your application, fill everything out, save it, and then once you're actually ready to submit your application, you can go through in one effort and just do all of your attachments all at once. You don't have to go back through and figure out where was the attachment that I needed to put, upload. It's all right there for your convenience. So that's how we've tried to, make this better on your end. And so this is just my reminder, do not do your attachments until you're ready to submit. Save and resume. I feel like I can feel the heat coming from Seneca County. We have had situations with people in the past where they have done the save and resume feature just to go into their document later and find out that it had not saved all of their progress. And that is obviously very frustrating. And it's not something that we run into a lot. It's actually very rare that someone reaches out to us and lets us know that they've had an issue with the save and resume feature actually saving all of their progress. So, this is just something I want to make you aware of, that we have seen it happen, and while rare, it could happen. And so you might want to consider saving this information in a Word document, or, you know, especially if it's a really big narrative that you're like, man, I would not want to retype that twice. Having it saved somewhere in case there is some technical glitch that results in some progress being lost, you can simply just paste it back in. You know, that's your choice whether or not you want to go through that effort, but I would be remiss if I did not let you know that that has not happened. So the save and resume link is a great feature of FormStack. Like I mentioned, it lets you save your progress and go back to it at a later date, so you don't have to do everything in one sitting. And you can also take that save and resume link and share it if you have other people. Let's say you have a financial director that needs to do some stuff with the budgets. You have a maintenance person that needs to provide some information on vehicles. You can pass that link around and allow them to access the application, fill in their parts, save it, and, you know, allow that coordination. But, you know, that comes with a warning that only one person should access that link at a time. So you really need to make sure you're being coordinated in that, because if someone opens it and another person's in it, you know, information will be overwritten. You know, FormStack doesn't recognize, oh, okay, I should save this person or that person, or this is happening. So I do think that FormStack has a safety mechanism where it will give you a warning that someone else has it open and therefore you cannot access it at that time. But again, in case there's some technical glitch, I want to make sure to point that out and remind you that you really should make sure, if you are going to have multiple people working on this application, that it is done so in a very coordinated way. And then finally, there should always be a confirmation email upon submission. We have the setting set up that the program contact email will receive a confirmation. And that confirmation email will say, you know, thank you for submission. Here is all of your submitted data. And if you submit it and that individual does not get an email from FormStack, please reach out. It is incredibly likely that that submission did not come through. So you need to just make sure, if you do not get a submission email confirmation, that we have it on our end. Because if we don't, we have no idea, right, that you attempted to submit it and it's not there. We go in, pull the submissions, and, you know, your transit system's not there, we're not considering you for funding. So please just know that you should get that, and if you don't, there is an issue. So the other thing is, previously for Black Cat applications, we had the forms uploaded in the application in Black Cat, and you would just download them straight from that. Since the application is in FormStack exclusively now, we are going to be providing templates still. However, they are going to actually be on our webpage, our funding webpage, under related documents. So I've included a screenshot here of where you will see these. And so over the next couple of days, we will start to upload all this information in preparation of the application being released. So that is where you're going to find them. And I have a slide in here where I will show you an example of a file upload and how you know that it is an ODOT template and not just something that you would produce locally and provide in the application. So we do make that notation in the application as well to help you kind of decipher, oh, okay, this is something that ODOT's providing for me that I have to complete and attach. And when you do see that, this is where you go.